The kids are at school, it's nice and quiet. Let's see if these work. Hi everyone, I'm going to attempt to put one of these Neo7Segment display boards together. I'm kind of nervous and impatient to see whether they work or not. So I just wanted to do a quick rundown of what I've got in front of me. I'm taking this video from two different angles, one from over the top, as you can see, and one from in front of me looking back at me. You can see my fingers creeping through here. It's going to be quite difficult to put together because I normally use a magnifying glass, which is this item that I'm just dragging in right now. As you can see, works really well magnifying, but if I do that and I put my head in the way, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing. So that's kind of not a great idea. So I'm going to try to do this without the magnifying glass. Should prove interesting. So what I've got in front of me is my PCB, which is obviously, as we've talked about, the Neo7Segment display PCB. It's a two-sided board. And I've got a pair of non-magnetic tweezers, as you can see, with a bit of a gooseneck on it. This is really good for picking things up. I've got my trusty lead-free solder paste, which you can read there. And up top here you can see a whole bunch of the NeoPixels. I've got them all arrayed the right way around, so it's probably a bit hard to see right now, the focus, but the top corner, let's see if I can get that in focus. Not really. The top corner is on the top left to match the little marks on the PCB. And over here I've got 9 capacitors. I've decided that for this board I'm just going to put the 3 rows of capacitors on and not worry about populating all the rest of them just for now, because I don't believe I'm going to need them and there's no harm in leaving them off. I can always add them on by hand later. So as I said, I'm going to try to hand solder paste this. It's going to take a little while and it's going to be a bit frustrating without my magnifying glass, but I'm going to do it on camera for everyone to watch. Anyway, let's get to it. I'm nervous to see whether one of these are actually going to work. Here we go. Sorry about my hands if they're in the way, or my head. Okay, it's a resistor, which I forgot to take out. Do all the pads. 28 NeoPixels by 4 pads. It's a lot of solder paste. Now you would have seen in my unboxing of the PCB videos that I actually got a solder paste stencil with my boards. I've never actually used one before, and I have done plenty of hand pasting like this, so I've decided I'm just going to hand paste this for now because I'm much more comfortable with it. I didn't want my first board to fail because I messed up my stencil mask. It would have been super frustrating. If you could see my face right now, you'd see that my tongue's sticking out as I'm trying to concentrate. The nice thing about solder paste, so solder is normally this silver, shiny stuff that melts when you put it into a soldering iron. The paste is slightly different. It's a kind of a soft liquidy type gel that comes out, and inside it is thousands of little flecks of solder. They're really tiny, and what happens is, as the solder paste melts, just going to shut my board up. As the solder paste melts, it starts to turn into solder, and the surface tension of the actual pads that I'm currently putting the paste onto actually makes the solder paste get it like shrink in and become attracted to the actual pads. So like if I wanted to, I could actually be a lot less careful with my paste placing, and I could allow the actual surface tension while it's melting to bring it back onto the pads. But I'm not going to do that because I firstly don't want to waste any paste. I also don't want to make a mess everywhere when I place all the pieces on. As you can see, it's kind of a time-consuming process doing this. Some people find it therapeutic. I don't know, maybe one day I'll find it therapeutic when I don't sit here nervous waiting to see whether my boards are going to work or not. It's a very slow process to design boards, send them off to get printed, wait for them to come back via post as opposed to DHL. DHL is great because they get delivered in like 3 days. Post is really bad because they get delivered in 2.5 weeks. So it's 2.5 weeks of sitting there waiting, worried that your board's not going to work. This isn't going too bad. I'm surprised that I've actually see what I'm doing. Okay, almost there. Oh, nice big blob. As you can see, that little bit there just went off to the edge, but that'll actually shrink back in. The surface tension. I'm not counting how many I've done. So there's no real reason why this board won't work, but I'm still anxious to see it working. I'm also kind of anxious to get onto the process of writing some software for it to make them actually light up and display numbers, and obviously limited letters. So a 7-segment display can't display every letter of the alphabet, obviously, because there are no diagonals, and there's just not enough resolution with the 7 segments to do like a letter like an M, for instance, or an R. But there are some letters it can do, quite a few actually. I think about 12 or so, or 13 letters, enough that you can get some basic language understanding out of it. So I'm looking forward to getting to the point where the board works and I can actually write some software to make it display some things. And then of course, once that's done, I'll turn it into an Arduino library that people will be able to download and use with these boards, or even just with NeoPixel strips. Technically, you should be able to make one of these just by cutting up strips into sections of 4, sticking them on a board, wiring them all together. It's really no different to having it on a PCB, other than that I just think this looks neat. Okay, I'm getting a bit sloppy because I'm getting near the end and I'm getting a bit nervous. Plus my thumb's really sore. Okay, take your time, Sion, relax. I'm a good waffler, by the way. I'm pretty bad at facing a camera and talking, as you might have noticed. A bit nervous, but I'm great at waffling endlessly off screen. Okay, now I just need to do these. Oops, a bit much. Oh well. Okay, bridge there should be fine, because as I said, it's surface tension. Almost there. Then we come to the fun part of placing all the parts. And then we stick it in my toaster oven. And that's completely scientific, as you'll see very shortly. It's the most scientific portion of this whole process. Okay, just do a quick scan. Make sure I haven't missed any, which I haven't. Got blobs everywhere. Some messy, some not so messy. Okay, the first thing we need to put on is actually a resistor, and I realised that I did not take one out, so I'm just going to grab one now. I'm going to use a 470 ohm. What have I got? I don't have a 470, I've got a 430. So I will grab one of those. So they come in strips. These are just pre-cut strips. Just going to be careful not to touch any of the solder. Grab the plastic that's holding it on. And tip one out. Oh, there it is. Tiny little minute thing. Turn it over. Oops. No, try that again. Oh, and there it goes. Good catch. Let's try that again. As you can see, these are tiny little pieces. So we're going to start putting this together. Okay, so the key to doing this is keeping my hands steady. So I'm going to have to cover, if I can, my hands like this to put them in place. Very hard to do when you're just using one hand, as you can see. Don't really have to push them down. Just need to get them onto pads. Should have started on the left hand side. I'll do that now. So not only will the solder paste get pulled onto the pads through surface tension, but the actual components will get pulled into place as well. So the conductive portions on the bottom of these will get pulled into place, and they'll actually straighten up. So if I put them on a slight angle, it's fine, because the tension will just drag everything into place, which is kind of nice, as long as I put enough paste everywhere, and as long as I hit them up enough. It doesn't really matter which order I do these in. I'm going to leave the capacitors to last. Trying not to get my fingers in the way, touching the paste anywhere to smudge it. I'm also trying to keep everything in view so you can see. As I said, all of this is normally much easier under the microscope, sorry, the magnifying glass. I wouldn't mind getting an actual proper electronics microscope for doing this type of work, but I just don't do enough of it to really justify the cost. Quite expensive. And there's no way I'd be able to video the process, I don't believe. The key to these is make sure that they're all the right way around. Once I've got them on, I'll do a quick pass, make sure that I haven't accidentally put any on the wrong orientation. Ground needs to be to the top left. You can already see from here the 7-segment display look. So I wish I could get this a little bit more in focus. Just a bit hard, a bit blown out. Okay, time for the capacitors. Put a lot of paste on those ones. Maybe a bit too many, too much. Too many paste? Don't think so, Sion. Okay. While I'm doing all this, I just wanted to thank you all my subscribers, and all those that watch my videos at the moment. Just a new channel, and just starting out, and it means a lot. Those of you that have subscribed and like my videos, even those of you I've spoken to that don't understand anything I'm doing or talking about, it's still nice to have your support. Okay, whoops, knocked that. As I said, better be super careful. Okay, a lot of people say put the little components on first. In this particular case, I'm putting these capacitors last because the neopixels are much more important. Capacitors can be desoldered and put back on again, or they can even be put on manually, but the neopixels can't because the pads are underneath. So once they're on, they're on. So let me just have a quick scan. I'm just going to be careful not to touch and move the board. I'm just going to pull it a bit closer just so I can lean over and have a look at it. It all looks pretty good. Corner, corner, corner. I don't think I've made a mistake anywhere, have I? Please, don't make a mistake. No, that all looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut the video here and move over to the toaster oven so we can do what's called a reflow, which melts all the solder and puts the board together. Okay, I'm going to try to do this on camera. Should be interesting. Don't know if there'll be a huge amount to see. What do we need? We've got our board, as you can see here, which is going to go in the oven. Here's our trusty toaster oven. Just a general thing you buy from any white goods store. Got a pair of pliers to pull it out with afterwards. I've got a heatsink to put it on to cool it down once it comes out of the oven. I've got my phone with a timer on it, and I've got a torch so I can look inside and see what's happening because it's a bit dark inside. This is very unscientific. I know a lot of people, or some people who watch this, might tell me off or complain or argue that I don't have any type of automated system for this, or that the solder paste needs to bake at a certain, not just a rising and falling temperature, but it's got to follow a certain type of graph. I understand all of that. I don't have a a thermocoupler in the oven that I can check the temperature on. I don't have any of that type of stuff. I'm doing all this completely blind, and so far so good. I've been quite successful with all my previous boards. I guess one day in the future, if I do enough of these boards or electronics or something else, I might get myself a Reflow oven, a proper one. But for the moment, I'm using this. This is the way it's going to happen. So here we go. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to turn the oven on at about 80 to 90 degrees just to start warming it up. As I said, there's nothing scientific about this. I'm just going to wing it. It's a pretty slow and boring process, so I apologise in advance. You might be able to hear the oven just clicking and ticking a bit as it starts to warm up inside. Okay, cool. So in a moment I'm going to put the board in, and then I'm going to crank it up and let it sit for about 30 seconds just to bring the temperature up, and then I'm going to crank it to 190 degrees. This particular solder paste actually melts at 183, I believe, so 190 is a good value. Okay, I'm going to place the board in. I'm just going to move it to the edge of the table so I can grab it on the corner. Be careful not to touch any of the components. Okay. Just going to place it with my... Okay, I'm not going to use my fingers. That's a bit silly. It's nice and hot. Use the pliers. I want it slightly in the middle. Place it down really carefully. Slightly in the middle of the oven. Close it up. I'm gonna start my timer. It's set for 3 minutes. When it gets to 30 seconds down, I'm gonna lift the temperature. Then I'm gonna sit staring at it with my trusty torch. As I said, pretty boring, as you can see. It's counting down. About to hit 230. Crank it up. Put my pliers down. And now I sit and stare and watch until I can see the actual solder paste start melting. So what happens when it starts melting is it starts to visually look like it's tingling, like it's going a bit sparkly. And then all of a sudden it starts melting and it turns into a bright shiny silver solder. Silver colour solder. I don't believe this solder paste has any silver in it. You can get solder paste that has like a 1% silver, which makes the solder pads a little bit more durable. Okay, we're down to 1 minute 40 now. 1 minute 40 left. We don't have any movement yet, which is fine. It's pretty straightforward. I can see that the bars inside the toaster are getting nice and red now, so it's definitely warming up. Fairly uneventful at the moment. Down to 1 minute 15 left. Okay, I can see it tingling. Here we go. Starting to go bright silver. I want to let it get silver. Let it sit for about 10 seconds, down to 1 minute. About 10 seconds to make sure all of the pads have gone silver, which it looks like they have. And this is where we turn it off. Down to 40 seconds left. Wait till it gets to 30, and then I'm going to open the oven, let air in so it can actually cool down much faster. I don't want to touch the tray yet and pull it out because I don't want the components to move at all. It's also not a good idea to do a big whiff of air coming in, big breath when you open the door. It's not overly good for you. Okay, pull the tray so I can get access to the board. Carefully grab the board and place it on the heatsink and close the oven. And that is our soldered board. Everything looks okay from here. Just want it to cool down. The heatsink does a really good job of extracting all the heat out of the board. I'll be able to touch it in a moment. So the only thing to do from here is to put some header pins in, solder some header pins in manually, and then I should be able to connect it to a microcontroller and see if it lights up. Okay, I think we're good now. Yep, it's nice and cool. Well, not hot. I'm going to take it back over to the desk and we'll put some pin headers in. Okay, I'm back. I've got my board, soldered board. As you can see, it's all on there. What we need to do now is put some pins on. I'm recording this from two different angles again. I don't know which one's going to come out the best, but let's just do this. I'm really dying to see what's going to happen with this. So I need 3 pins. Just going to cut off, as you can see here, just 3. They just snap off pretty easily. With a pair of cutters. I've got my soldering iron on. It's going to be interesting to see if I can do this on camera, if you'll even be able to see anything or not. Soldering iron in the way. Okay. Bit of a clean. Get some. I'm doing this without my fan close by, just because can't put it in the way. You're not going to be able to see. You're not going to be able to hear if I do. Just tin the end of the. Now we're going to carefully, not touching any of the components. Just going to solder these on. Again, I would normally use my magnifying glass, but I don't have access to it right now. They're just 3 different pins, so that should be all we need to do. Put the iron away, the cable out the way. I'm just going to switch it off. Excuse me leaning over. Hopefully do not need it anymore. Let that cool down. So now you can see we've got on the in, we've got different pins that we can use, that we can plug cables into. Oh, can you see it from both angles? Yeah, not really, out of focus. I hope this is in focus. Okay, so now all I need to do is grab a microcontroller and a battery. Let me see if the cable will reach. Hang on a second. No, it won't. No, okay, don't worry. Okay, I've got a microcontroller that I've just got a standard NeoPixel test on, which just changes colours. I've got a lipo battery, and I need to plug this in. Now I believe, what have I got? Blue is ground, yellow is VCC. So blue is ground, yellow is VCC. That would leave green as the data. We plug these in the right way. So let's do it on camera rather than off camera. Just a bit nervous right now. I don't even know if this will even pick up on camera. It's going to be super bright. There's a trick I can do for that though. But anyway, I'm going to plug this lipo battery into the microcontroller, and if all goes well, all of these lights will turn on and start changing colour. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Oh, whoa! I'm not sure if you can all see that. Let me get a piece of paper. Okay, if I put that over the top, you should be able to see that. Got all the lights turning on and it's cycling colour. That is awesome. So the board works. It actually works. I know I sound like I'm in shock, and I'm a little bit in shock. Because generally things don't solder first time. I have to do touch-ups. Okay, so now I need to build another board so I can have 2 of them next to each other. So obviously we've got pins coming in here, and put 3 more pins on this side, and that can daisy chain to the next one. But I also need to write some software to make this actually display different numbers and letters. So that'll be the next part of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I would love if you could share and subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you think it's worth a thumbs up, and if you think it's worth a thumbs down, please give me a thumbs down. But please leave comments. Feel free to criticize any of my process. Feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to get all type of feedback. This is all a learning process for me, but that's pretty exciting. I have a lit up 7-segment display.